Stop eating these 7 healthy foods that quietly hurt your brain. What would you think if I told you that some of the healthy foods doctors often recommend might not be supporting your brain health as much as you think, in the long run? In fact, some of them might be one of the very things that, over the years, quietly speeds up the brain aging process without you even noticing. Before we get into the video, let's start with a quick reminder. The information shared here is for general informational purposes only. It's not a substitute for medical diagnosis or treatment. Before making any decisions about your health, it's important to consult a healthcare professional. And let me say this too, before we go any further, the food at the very end of this list is one that most people consider brain-friendly. There's a good chance it's sitting in your kitchen right now. We're all inclined to trust words like natural, low-fat, whole grain, or sugar-free when we see them on packaging while we shop. Most of the time, these labels give us the impression that a product is healthy. But as nutrition science has advanced, it's become clear that the reality is far more complicated than that. Research in recent years shows that some foods widely considered healthy can, when eaten regularly over a long period of time, create unwanted effects on the brain's blood vessels, memory, and cognitive function. Of course, these effects don't show up overnight. They build up slowly over months, even years. That's why most people don't even realize they're eating something that could be negatively affecting their brain health, sometimes almost every single day. In this video, we're going to look at 7 foods that are marketed as healthy in grocery stores, but have caught the attention of scientific studies. We'll talk about why they're controversial, how they might affect the brain, and if you're interested, what alternatives you might choose instead. The food at the very end of this list, in particular, might surprise you. Because for years, this product has been presented as a healthy option that gives energy to both children and older adults alike. But when you take a closer look at the ingredient list, the situation isn't quite as simple as it seems. I want to highlight something important here. The goal of this video isn't to scare you or to tell you to cut any of these foods completely out of your life. Our goal is to help you see the difference between marketing messages and scientific findings more clearly. As experts often point out, brain health isn't determined by a single food. What really matters is the eating habits we build over the years. In other words, the issue isn't eating a product once in a while. It's when that product becomes an indispensable part of your daily routine. As you watch this video, I'd recommend taking a moment to reflect on your own eating habits, because you might be eating some of the foods on this list almost every day without even realizing it. There's also the factor of age to consider. As we get older, our brains become a bit more sensitive to the negative effects that can come from diet. One reason for this is that blood vessels gradually lose their flexibility over time, and the brain's ability to repair itself slows down compared to our younger years. That's why, especially from middle age onward, our food choices become even more important. Here's the encouraging part, though. Most of the suggestions we're about to talk about don't require you to completely overhaul your life. Small, consistent changes can make a bigger difference than you'd expect over the long run. All right, if you're ready, let's start with the first food. Number 1, packaged fruit juices. Fruit juices labeled 100% natural on grocery store shelves have long been a breakfast table staple. Because juice comes from fruit, people assume it's healthy, and after all, it is a source of vitamins. But there's an important detail that often gets overlooked here. During the juicing process, most of the fruit's fiber is lost. Fiber acts as a natural brake, slowing down how quickly sugar enters the bloodstream. Without fiber, the natural sugar in fruit juice moves into your bloodstream very quickly, which can cause sudden spikes in blood sugar. Researchers suggest that repeated blood sugar spikes can, over time, affect the walls of blood vessels and negatively impact the health of the small blood vessels that supply the brain. The brain is one of the organs in the body that needs the most blood flow, so any deterioration in blood vessel health can, in the long run, affect cognitive function as well. Margaret's story is a great example of this. Margaret, age 67, had started every morning with a glass of orange juice for years. She believed this was a healthy habit because the juice carton said no additives, no added sugar. During a routine checkup with her doctor, it was noticed that her blood sugar levels were more variable than expected. When her doctor reviewed her daily eating habits, he pointed out that the fruit juice was making a significant contribution to her daily sugar intake. Margaret's story reminds us of something important. Just because a food is natural doesn't mean it has no effect on the body. Choosing whole fruit instead of fruit juice helps preserve the fiber and can help keep blood sugar levels more stable. Some fruit juice manufacturers try to make up for this missing fiber by adding phrases like pulp added or fiber enriched to their labels. But the amount and type of fiber added may not be as effective as the fiber naturally found in a whole piece of fruit. Experts recommend that anyone who wants to drink fruit juice pay close attention to portion size, and if possible, drink it alongside a meal rather than on its own, since sugar consumed with food tends to enter the bloodstream more slowly than sugar consumed alone. Still, it's generally agreed that the safest approach is to eat the fruit in its whole form. Number 2, high protein or fit labeled snack bars. You can find these bars almost everywhere now on the shelves of gyms, pharmacies, and grocery stores. They're labeled with phrases like high protein, low sugar, or natural grains, which makes them look like a healthy snack option. But when you look at the ingredient list on the back of the label, you'll often find multiple types of sugar hiding under different names, along with glucose syrup and highly processed fats. Many of these bars actually have a nutritional profile close to that of candy. The only real difference is the marketing language. Regularly eating highly processed, sugar-rich snacks is thought to contribute over time to low-grade chronic inflammation in the body. There is scientific evidence suggesting that this type of inflammation can negatively affect communication between brain cells and the functioning of regions associated with memory. Harold is a 72-year-old retired teacher. On his doctor's recommendation, he had swapped out his usual snacks for healthy bars to help manage his weight. He believed this was the right move because the bars had low sugar printed on them in big letters. During a family conversation, his grandson read the ingredient list on the back of the bar and noticed that it contained 5 different types of sugar. Harold said he was surprised when he found this out because the front of the package gave a completely different impression. This example shows that the marketing language on the front of a package doesn't always match up with the actual ingredient list. When choosing a snack, it can be helpful to read the ingredient list carefully and to consider less processed alternatives, like raw nuts or fresh fruit. Another problematic aspect of these products is that they're often held together with glucose syrup-based binders made from refined grains. These binders help the bar maintain its texture, but they can also cause a rapid spike in blood sugar. Nutritionists recommend that anyone looking for a genuinely practical snack should choose products where none of the first few ingredients listed are a type of sugar, and that lean toward whole grains and nuts instead. It's also important to pay attention to serving size, since some bars can contain 2 servings worth of sugar and calories in a single package. Another common misconception is assuming that the word protein automatically means healthy. Even if a product is high in protein, that same product can also contain high amounts of added sugar and processed fat. Nutritionists recommend looking at a snack as a whole rather than focusing on a single nutrient. A simple homemade mix, for example, raw almonds, walnuts, and dried fruit, can offer a tasty alternative whose ingredients are entirely within your control. Number 3, reheated or deep-fried vegetable oils. Vegetable oils have long been marketed as a healthier alternative to animal fats. While that's generally true, the real issue isn't so much the type of oil, but how that oil is processed and used. In particular, vegetable oils that are repeatedly used for deep frying at high temperatures can undergo chemical changes, and during this process, reactive compounds known as oxidative stress can form, which have the potential to damage cells. In restaurants and packaged food production, it's common practice to reuse frying oil for several days in a row, and this can increase the risk of the oil breaking down chemically. Scientists point out that oxidative stress can affect the membranes of brain cells and, over time, contribute to dysfunction in regions of the brain involved in memory and learning. Walter, age 81, loves eating out. He used to visit his neighborhood's fried food restaurant several times a week, and he felt comfortable eating there because he was told the food was cooked in olive oil, which he assumed made it healthy. But when olive oil or any oil is reused repeatedly at high temperatures over a long period, its structure can change, regardless of how good the oil was to begin with. When Walter's family cut back on eating out and started cooking more meals at home, they realized just how important it is for cooking oil to be fresh and used at the right temperature. This story shows us that how an oil is used matters just as much as what kind of oil it is. Using oil at low to medium heat at home and avoiding reheating the same oil over and over can be a helpful habit to build. The color, smell, or way in oil foams can be important signs that it's been exposed to heat and has started to break down. But in a restaurant setting, it's generally not possible for the customer to keep track of these details. That's why experts recommend that, instead of frequently eating fried foods when dining out, people lean toward cooking methods like baking, grilling, or sautéing with a small amount of oil at home. Using high-quality oils like olive oil in salads or in low-temperature cooking, rather than in high-heat frying, can also help preserve the oil's nutritional value. It's also worth noting that some packaged foods still contain partially hydrogenated oils. These are oils that have been chemically altered to extend shelf life, and scientists have been closely monitoring them for a long time because of their effects on blood vessel health. Packaged pastries, certain types of margarine, and ready-made cake mixes can contain these kinds of oils. Seeing the phrase partially hydrogenated on an ingredient list is a clear signal that the product deserves a closer look. Number 4. Sugary flavored low-fat yogurts. Low-fat yogurts have long been presented as an ideal choice for people who are dieting or watching their weight. Flavored with fruit, vanilla, or caramel, these products are often perceived as a healthy breakfast or snack option. But when the fat content is reduced, manufacturers often increase the amount of sugar to keep the flavor appealing. The sugar content in some flavored low-fat yogurts can be nearly as high as that of a dessert. Regularly eating high-sugar foods is thought to contribute over time to insulin resistance, which in turn can affect blood flow to the brain. Some researchers suggest that chronically high blood sugar levels may be linked to the size of the hippocampus, a region of the brain that plays a major role in memory. Dorothy, age 69, had eaten a cup of fruit-flavored yogurt every afternoon for years. She thought of it as both a tasty and a healthy habit. One day, while grocery shopping with her daughter noticed the sugar content listed on the label and realized it was close to the amount of sugar found in a chocolate dessert. Dorothy was quite surprised when she found this out because the yogurt's packaging said low fat in big letters, but the sugar content wasn't highlighted anywhere. After this experience, Dorothy started choosing plain yogurt and adding her own fresh fruit to it. This small change helped her cut back on her daily sugar intake without sacrificing flavor, allowing for a more balanced choice overall. Here's another important point. The sugar in flavored yogurts often doesn't appear as a single line item. Manufacturers can spread sugar across the ingredient list under different names, like glucose syrup, fructose, and sucrose, which makes it harder to notice the total amount of sugar at first glance. Nutritionists recommend looking at both the first 3 ingredients on the list and the total sugar amount on the nutrition facts panel to get a true sense of a product's sugar load. Choosing plain yogurt and sweetening it yourself can help you control the amount of sugar you're consuming, while also allowing you to fully benefit from the yogurt's protein and calcium content. Number 5. Large fish species that may contain high mercury levels. Fish is often recommended as one of the top foods for brain health because it's rich in omega-3 fatty acids. But there's an important detail here: not all fish are the same. Large fish that sit high up on the food chain, like tuna steak, swordfish, and shark, tend to accumulate mercury from environmental sources over their lifetimes. Eating these fish regularly and in large amounts can lead to mercury buildup in the body. Mercury is a heavy metal known to have negative effects on the nervous system, and long-term exposure is thought to potentially affect communication between nerve cells. What's interesting is that many people who eat these fish thinking of them as brain healthy have no idea which fish species actually carry a lower mercury risk. Ruth, age 74, took her doctor's advice about omega-3 fatty acids seriously. She started eating tuna steak 3 to 4 times a week, believing it was the best choice for her heart and brain health. After some time, during a routine blood test, her doctor asked about her eating habits and pointed out that the type and frequency of fish she was eating might be above the recommended safe limits. Her doctor explained that smaller fish lower on the food chain, like salmon or sardines, could offer similar omega-3 benefits with a much lower mercury risk. After learning this, Ruth changed which fish she chose to eat. This story shows that more fish is always better isn't necessarily true, and that choosing the right type of fish matters just as much as how much of it you eat. Health organizations recommend that adults who regularly eat fish vary both the number of weekly servings and the type of fish they choose. Smaller fish with shorter life cycles generally accumulate less heavy metal since they spend less time in the food chain. The way fish is cooked matters too. Grilling or baking compared to frying can reduce both the fat content and the likelihood of harmful compounds forming. For anyone hoping to benefit from omega-3 fatty acids, diversifying the types of fish you eat rather than relying heavily on just one type is a reasonable approach. Number 6. Heavily processed plant-based milk alternatives. Almond milk, oat milk, and similar plant-based milk alternatives have become extremely popular in recent years, especially among people who are lactose sensitive or who prefer a plant-based diet. While these products carry a natural and healthy image, many versions found on grocery store shelves go through fairly heavy processing and often contain various additives, thickeners, and sometimes added sugar to extend shelf life, improve texture, or boost flavor. In addition, the nutritional value of some plant-based milk alternatives, particularly when it comes to B vitamins and other micronutrients, can be noticeably lower than that of traditional dairy milk. B vitamins, especially vitamin B12, play an important role in the healthy functioning of nerve cells and in memory. People who switch entirely to plant-based milk alternatives without making up for this gap through other sources may, over time, develop certain nutrient deficiencies. Evelyn, age 76, switched entirely to almond milk a few years ago after having trouble digesting dairy products. She believed this change was a positive step for her health. Over time, though, she noticed a drop in her energy levels and overall vitality. During a conversation with her doctor, her eating habits were reviewed in detail, and it turned out that almond milk wasn't providing some of the nutrients that her previous dairy consumption had supplied. Evelyn's doctor explained that the quality of plant-based milk alternatives can vary greatly from brand to brand, and that it's worth carefully comparing labels. This experience shows that plant-based alternatives aren't automatically a healthier choice for everyone. The nutritional content of the specific product matters too. Experts recommend that people who choose plant-based milk alternatives look for the phrase, "fortified with vitamins and minerals" on the label, and choose varieties with higher protein content whenever possible. They also recommend that people who have switched entirely to a plant-based diet, or who have significantly reduced their dairy intake, have their vitamin B12 levels checked regularly with their doctor as a helpful precaution. Plant-based milk alternatives can be a beneficial choice when selected carefully and included as part of a balanced diet. The real issue arises when any version of the product is automatically assumed to be adequate, regardless of its quality. When comparing brands, it's also helpful to pay attention to protein content. Some plant-based milk alternatives contain less than 1 gram of protein per cup, while traditional dairy milk contains significantly more. This difference can be especially important for older adults who already struggle to meet their daily protein needs. Choosing unsweetened versions and looking for products fortified with calcium and vitamin D are simple ways to boost the nutritional value of these alternatives. Number 7. Sugary processed multigrain breads. Breads labeled multigrain, whole wheat, or natural grains on the bread aisle shelf are generally perceived as a healthier option compared to white bread, but these labels don't always reflect the bread's actual nutritional value. Some manufacturers use additives like caramel coloring to give bread a darker color and a healthy appearance, even though the bread's main ingredient may still be highly refined flour. It's also common practice to add sugar to bread dough to balance out the flavor. Regularly eating bread made with refined flour and added sugar can cause fluctuations in blood sugar, which, as we mentioned earlier with fruit juice, can affect blood vessel health over time. Genuine whole grain bread, on the other hand, retains the bran and germ of the grain, which means it offers more fiber and nutrients and can help blood sugar rise in a more controlled way. George, age 83, had been buying bread labeled multigrain for years. He believed it was far healthier than the white bread he ate growing up. One day, during a conversation with his dietitian, he learned that the first ingredient listed on his bread was refined wheat flour, while whole wheat flour appeared much further down the list. His dietitian explained that if you want to buy genuine whole grain bread, the very first ingredient listed should be whole wheat flour. After learning this, George changed his bread buying habits and started reading ingredient lists carefully. This example shows, once again, that big, eye-catching phrases on packaging don't always match the actual order of ingredients listed on the label. For anyone looking to buy genuine whole grain bread, one practical tip is to check whether whole wheat flour or whole grain flour appears at the very top of the ingredient list. It's also helpful to check the fiber content, since bread with at least 2 to 3 grams of fiber per slice tends to be made from less processed grains. Color or phrases like multigrain aren't sufficient evidence on their own, since that appearance can easily be achieved with additives. Fresh, plain, minimally processed whole grain bread from a bakery generally stands out as the most reliable option. The 7 foods we've covered in this video all share one thing in common. None of them are on their own harmful or something you need to avoid completely. What really matters is how processed these products are, how often you eat them, and how large a part of your daily diet they've become. For example, an occasional glass of fruit juice or a flavored yogurt every now and then isn't a big problem on its own. But when these kinds of products start being eaten every day, some negative effects that can impact brain health may build up over the long run. Research actually backs this up. Studies show that people who regularly eat high-sugar, heavily processed foods may have a noticeably higher risk of cognitive decline compared to people who eat a more balanced diet. Some studies have reported that this difference can be as high as 30%. So given all this information, what can you actually do? The first step is actually pretty simple. Instead of relying only on front-of-package phrases like natural, fit, or whole grain when grocery shopping, you can make it a habit to check the ingredient list and nutrition facts on the back of the package. If added sugar, refined flour, or heavily processed fats appear near the top of the ingredient list, it's worth taking a second look at that product. Beyond that, leaning toward minimally processed foods whenever possible is a great place to start. Fresh vegetables, fruits, nuts, and home-cooked meals are generally better choices in this regard, and you don't have to do all of this in a single day. Even 1 or 2 small changes a week can add up to a bigger difference than you'd expect over time. The people we talked about in this video also had one thing in common. None of them were making careless choices. On the contrary, every single one of them believed they were eating healthy. What misled them was the gap between how these products were marketed and what they actually contained. And that brings us to an important reminder. Eating healthy isn't just about trusting what's printed on the package. It's about actually knowing what you're consuming. Let's close with one more reminder. The information shared in this video is for general informational purposes only and is not a substitute for personalized medical advice. If you're considering making significant changes to your diet, especially if you have a chronic condition or take medication regularly, the best approach is to consult your doctor or a registered dietitian. So, which of these foods on the list do you eat regularly? Which one surprised you the most? Feel free to share your experiences with us in the comments. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to share it with your loved ones so more people can benefit from this information. It might be especially helpful for the family members who do the grocery shopping in your household. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss new content about brain health and healthy living. We'll see you in the next video. Wishing you healthy and mindful days ahead.